CIG AI single-player learning competition. My name is Jialin Liu. I'm postdoc in Queen Mary, University of London. This competition is co-organized with Diego and Simon. I'll give up this one. So I think many of you have heard about CIG AI competitions, why we want to organize these competitions. There are two very interesting research questions. The first one is, can AI program solve a very difficult problem? So we all know about chess, game Go, and there are many research work around the StarCraft. We have seen a lot yesterday, and the Healthy Storms, and many other ones. Another question is, can a single AI program solve a large set of different games successfully without intervention by humans, which means achieve general game playing. So to do this, the University of Essex and New York University have implemented this general video game AI framework. By the way, our research team has moved from Essex to Queen Mary, University of London. Yay! It's very important for us. It's a very important move. And the main body of the framework is implemented in Java and VGDL, Video Game Definition Language, and we added a small part in Python this year for the single-player learning track because we want to support submissions in Python. Well, this framework has been used not only for computations. What happened? Great. And also for research and education use. It has been used for general video game playing research, of course, and also for AI-assisted game design. If you have been to our tutorial on Tuesday afternoon, you may have known something about it, but if you haven't been there, that's fine. Our slides will be available online very soon. CIG AI has been already used in education as well, in many modules of AI and game design, different universities in different countries. So people who are sitting here who have used CIG AI in your teaching, please hand up. Thank you. Thanks for your support. And people who haven't used them, shame on you. It's never too late to start. Better late than never. You are old-fashioned now. Okay, different tracks have been designed for different research purposes. In this CIG framework, you have heard about the planning track, I guess, the single-player planning one and two-player planning one. They have been organized for several years in CIG, CEC, and Giggle. I should never touch my laptop again. Well, and the level generation check and rule generation check are led by Ahmed, who will present after me, right? And the single-player planning track is led by Diego, and the two-player planning track is chaired by Haluga. Haluga, where are you? Thank you. And this year, yes, single-player learning track is the first year in SIG. If you have heard about the planning track, we know that actually every agent will be given an annual set of games, and this agent will play the game one by one and all 5 levels. And in the learning track, there is a key difference between the planning track. That is, in the learning track, the agent won't have the access to the forward model, which means you cannot simulate the game. In the planning track, as the agent is given a free forward model, after selecting an action, not selecting action, maybe just want to consider action, the agent can simulate game and get the reward and game state of the next game tick. If the game is deterministic, it's a good, very good situation because you know exactly what you will gain or lose by performing an action. Even if it's stochastic, you can do several simulations with the same action and get some average score, as you like. But in the learning track, no. I'm sorry, you don't have this forward model. You need to guess what will happen next. And another thing is that for each of the game, the agent will still play 5 levels, but this time it will play 3 levels during the learning phase, and the levels 4 and 5 will be used for validation. Here, this figure summarizes briefly the main process of this computation. Just check I have time. Yep, okay. So for each of the game, the agent start game, and the constructor will be called only once. And in the learning phase is divided by 2. In the first one, the agent will play the level 1, 2, 3 sequentially once. The the init method will be called every time when a level starts. And in the first two, the agent is free to select the next level to play among level 1, 2, or 3. The agent just sends a message 0, 1, or 2 to select level to play, and the total available time for learning first is 5 minutes. After this learning, the agent will play the level 4 and 5 sequentially, and this will be repeated 10 times. This result during the validations will be used to calculate the ranking of agents. Then a game finished, the agent can play another game. It's notable that an agent will be reinitialized for every game, not for every level. Okay, this table summarizes the difference between the learning track and the planning tracks. We have to talk about they all play unknown games, and you will have access to the state observation, but not access to the forward model. What is included in the state observation? You have the game tick, you have the game score, but not game rules, and you have the legal actions at every game tick, and the observation of the other sprites in the world, and also the world dimension. But in the planning track, you have the access to the history events, which could be the collisions, but in the learning track, they are not included. Another difference is that in the state observation, we provide a serialized state observation in two formats. One could be JSON, a string, JSON object, or a screenshot of the game screen. Actually, this is slightly unfair in this format, because if you are using the JSON object, you get state observation, you can use the method get NPC or get resource to get the exact sprite list from this observation. But if you are using the screenshot, you only see that this sprite looks different than others, but you don't know if it's the NPC or a resource to collect or to use. Fortunately, this year, no one has used this screenshot. I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky. Well, and single learning track supports submissions in both Java and Python. By the way, you can also select to receive both the JSON object and the screenshot of the game state. I will pass this code part I put here because the slide will be available online. If you are interested, you can look at it later. So how to evaluate the agents? Each agent will be played on different, the same site of games. And actually, we have put 8 sites online for training, but people only submit to the training site 1. And each agent will be evaluated in 10 games, and they will play on 5 levels, but only the level 4 and 5 will be used in the final calculation of game scores. And we take into account the number of victories, average score, and the time spent to finish the game. The entries are ranked and awarded with points 25, 18 by the game score first, and then considering the victory, and then score the time spent. The final ranking is calculated by summing all the points gained in all the game sites. So the training sites are known to people, but the test site is unknown, and we don't release it. So this year we have used the same training site and the test site, the single player planning track. To summarize the submissions quickly, we have 1 external Java agent submission from Eurobot, 1 from 1 Python agent, and 2 internal Java submission using Java, and 2 samples. As I'm running out of time, I will speed up. So this is ranking of the test site 1, and Increment, are you here? Yes, he's ranked number 1, the first one in the training site 1. And have a guess of your ranking in the test site. Give it a guess, random guess.
I hope it's better than the random one.
Oh, you're so harsh, that's too difficult, You're expecting too much. So the first one is by our PhD student, Mike. And the sample random is still ranked second. It has been ranked second both in the training side and the test side. So if you are good in calculating hard, you may have already figured out the final winner of this competition this year. Is the sample random agent. Well, so that's a winner. And I even think about if I let my cat running on my keyboard, it may win the sample random. I'm not sure. Why not give it a try? I'm sorry for this. So actually, I plot the scores by the best agent in the single-player planning track, which are tested on the same games. So they are shown in the second column, and the third column are the best score obtained by the learning agent. And the agent is listed on the first floor. You have seen that there is a very obvious gap between the scores. There is a long way to go. The first step is to beat sample random. So to be improved, there are many things to be improved. And the first, most interesting part is to record the games. If I have recorded game playing, I could have shown you a video here. So maybe next year. And need to give better bug reporting and error message to our participants, and the better timer, and provide more and stronger sample agents. But I don't know if it's very important or not because the sample random is very strong. And we need to advertise the track much earlier to attract more participants. And for next competition, we'll be organizing CIG 2018, which has need to submit the proposal. I think I'm running out of time, I know. Just quick thanks to our second year student, Daniel. He has helped a lot in implementing this framework. And a special thanks to all the participants and to Damien, who is also sitting in this room, I guess. Damien, are you here? Thanks for testing our framework on the window machines, and also Qi Zhang, who has helped us a lot. If you are interested, you can download our framework for education, for research, or just for fun. You can play the games by yourself. Finally, thank you, and any questions, and also this information about the competition award provided by ECS if you are interested. I'm sorry, I think I've taken too much time.
Any questions?
We still have time because one track has been cancelled.
Oh, great. Thanks for this person, Ahmed. Thank you.
So just a question about the level 4 and the level 5. So they are done 10 times then?
Yes.
You are saying?
Yes.
And during these 10 runs, is the agent still allowed to improve its behavior,
Sure.
to learn and to improve?
Sure. During these 10 times, the agent can still continue learning. It's just there is no more time limit on these 10 ones. We still limit the time to return action is 40 milliseconds, but this time is not included in the 5 minutes learning time. Actually, next year, we may change this learning time. We will do more tests, and also we may change the number of game repetition during the validation. Could be 10 times or less or more. We need to do more tests. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
I think this. I need to change something.
Yeah.
Need to be like higher resolution or something.
Yeah. What scale?
1080p. Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Ahmed. I run the general video game level generation track and the rule generation track, which both of them kind of canceled this year. So because the rule generation only didn't have any submission, while the level generation had only one submission, so there is no one to compare him with. So for level generation, I'm gonna talk about the level generation right now, and the rule generation, I have a paper tomorrow, so you can hear about the competition itself tomorrow in the paper. So the level generation, you are trying to create a level using an algorithm, and since all the algorithms so far are specific for certain games or stuff like that, so we wanted to make it as general as possible by using the general video game AI framework and providing an interface to build your own level generator. So the whole framework is designed this way, where the framework is giving you a game description object, which contain different data that will help you to build your level, and your level generator is supposed to return back the generated level. So this object that's supported to you contain all the information about like the game's price, like what's objects in the game, like you have an avatar, you have collectible objects, you have harmful objects, solid object, like it give you like more detailed information even about like each element in the game, and it give you also all the interactions that can happen if you collide with any of the object, and also give you a forward models where you can test your games using an agent or like whatever you want to test with, because our submission this year, like it's different, a little bit different. So right, the game, this is one of the games there which I just used like to generate level for our competitor this year, which is Freeway, which you need to just, it's like Frogger, you need just to cross the road to the other side, and it's kind of like a harsh game. So this year, our competitor submit like an n-gram generator where he tried to generate, first he generate a random level, and then he modifies this random level based on the user input. But since there is no user supported in the competition itself, so he used a random agent right now, or any other agent. Like he told me, you can integrate any other agent and use the input to modify the level. And after that, he finished all this modification. In the end, he just fixed the goals. Like if there is no goal object, which is an object that make you finish the game itself, he tried to fix that and add it to the level. And so basically to like rate the users of the competition, we do a user study where we give the people like 2 generated levels from different or even the same algorithm and ask them to play these levels and see which one is better than the other, or like both of them are bad or as good as each other. So this year we couldn't do that because we have only 1 submission. So I'm just gonna share like last year like results. So last year we had 4 competitors. 1 used a seller automata and 3 other use a search-based approach. And the seller automata won by a huge margin compared to search-based. And the main reason was that the level generated by seller automata have very few objects compared to the search-based algorithm. So people enjoyed even like running around, while in the search-based one, people die all the time. Also, like the seller automata generated a couple of like funny levels. It's not here right now, but there was a couple of funny levels, like a door and a key, and the key is behind the door. So some people like the level because of that. Yeah, so right now we need to improve the competition and run it again and improve the framework, because there is a couple of errors that happens from time to time. If you have like there is a certain type of object cannot be inserted in the level more than 1 time, and sometimes cause errors. So we need to fix some of this stuff and improve the framework. So thank you. Any question?
I was looking for this, this level generation track for some time. I find it very, very interesting, but on the other hand, I didn't have time to work properly to not send something stupid. But the question is because, this framework is very complicated in the sense that you're given this all what is possible. So I don't know, 6 or whatever number you have types of agents, yeah, and you have to deal with that. So it's kind of, if you try to do it properly, it may be to increase the number of submissions. You should kind of constrain what types of, because you have so much multiple number of entities that can be in that. So it's very hard to do something which is not very stupid like.
Okay. Yeah, well, this feedback we need from the people so can improve the framework right now. So yeah, we could like try to have more like constrained like environment for next year or something like that.
I don't know if it's the best way, yeah, because you should go general. But
yeah, I know.
My impression was that you should spend a kind of month to figuring out what does each type do, and some of them behave very, very similar. So it's like a
yeah, I know what you mean.
PhD students, yeah, or even students, but.
Actually, it's not a question, it's just comment because you mentioned that you don't want to submit anything stupid. But actually, don't be afraid of submitting anything stupid.
It's a random one.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
random. It's
competition,
rolling the
so-
world now. It's controlling the world. It's winning the competition. So never be afraid of submitting anything stupid. If you just submit the agent with repeatedly do nothing, maybe it will be better than random. Who knows, right?
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. So I guess the next competition is game data mining competition, which will be presented by Kung Jong Kim.
PowerPoint or different programs?
The PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kyungjun Kim from Sejong University in Korea. Today, I'd like to introduce the new competition, Game Data Mining Competition, and the results of this year's competition. So, game data mining use the game log data to understand the players, and especially the goal of the mining is to predict the churning behavior. The player will continue the game or stop the game playing. And especially the purchase behavior is one of the big interests in game company. So in the near future, the gamer will buy some items or not. But the main problem of this society is that there is no data. So because the game company do not want to share their data with others. So there is no any public benchmarking data set. So if you want to study this area, there is no way to start the research. So in this competition, we want to provide the commercially successful game data from NCSoft, one of the biggest game companies in Korea. So the size of data is about 100 gigabyte, and actually this is very useful data for this game data mining society. And in our competition, we define two different tracks. The first one is binary classification problem, the game player's churning prediction. So it's a churn or retention prediction. And the second problem is more difficult. That's a regression problem. So can you predict the survival time of the gamers? So we have two tracks in this year. So let me show you a video of the Blade and Soul. So we will use the data about this game.
Able to express their power through chilled blasts or charged fists. The Gon, the Yoon, and the Jin have shown themselves to be proficient in this new martial arts form, which requires both discipline and balance in order to tame the maelstrom of their abilities. As sharp as the point of a tornado, the Soul Fighter is equally capable of close melee destruction, as managing the ranged follow, and can be as elusive to catch as the Thunderbolt. Upon entering the battle, or at any point within, a stance is chosen. The elemental stance calls upon the Blizzard to summon winds, hurl ice, or focus their chi to maintain opponents beyond arm's length reach. The Kung Fu stance concentrates on keeping the opponent off balance, with greater damage applied when attacking from behind the enemy. Should an opponent attempt to retaliate, the quick Soul Fighter can dash out of harm's way and follow through with a strike of their own. With each progressive attack, the Soul Fighter stores chi, The height of this energy buildup will either unleash the ferocity of your fists to deal awesome damage, or command the storm's fury. Evoking the Kung Fu Master's control over the Force Master's elements, the Soul Fighter is a true champion of their inner chi. Interested? Play the Soul Fighter class in Blade and Soul beginning June 22nd.
So this is a free game, so you can try. So if you want to start a study. Okay. And we have 2 tracks, the Chun prediction track, and we use the F1 measure to rank the entries. And the second track, the survival analysis track. And because this is a regression problem, we adopt the root mean squared error measures to rank the entries. So we have a homepage to give some data about the game data and some tutorials with the R programming language. So if you want to adopt this data for your education, so please use the tutorial information with the R program language. And we also maintain the Google Groups, and through the Groups page, we provide some data. So you can download the data from these Google Groups, and we provide some log schema and sample log. And we also provide QA in the groups. And currently, we have 264 members. So it means that there are big interest on the data. So I hope that this data can be used for the research and education in data mining and some machine learning, and I hope so. And we also developed a new test server. So in the test server, you can submit your predictions before the deadline, just for the validation. So we provide the accuracy on 10% of the test data, and you can see the rank and some information of the entry. For security reason, we limit the maximum number of trials per day, 48. So there is a 30-minute some delay waiting time from the last submissions. So I will explain about the problems we want to solve. The target of this competition is we define target excluding the light users and some AI bots. We just focus on some high royalty players, and with expend some money rather than the certain amount. So that's our target. And the next issue is that we want to predict the churn from the now, 3 weeks from the now. So this is quite difficult problem. So this is for the company request. So the company want to have enough time before the churning. So for example, if you have 3 weeks time before the churning, then you can do something to change the mind of the gamers. So this is quite difficult requirement, but this is important that game company do something before the actual churning. And the definition of churn is quite important issue in the game data mining, and there are some different definition about the churn. In our study, we define the churn as a long-term inactive state as a churn. And how many weeks for the churn decision? The game company requests 5 weeks for the churn decision. So if there are some login during the 5 weeks, then that's not retention. But there is no login during the 5 weeks, it's a churn. And the final request from game company is, please dealing with the concept drift. So normally the Blade and Soul is subscription-based games, so they pay monthly. But recently, they changed the payment system to free-to-play. So we add one additional test set from the free-to-play. So training set is from the monthly payment business model. And test 1 is from the same business model, but test 2 is from the recent free-to-play. So they want to know that the prediction model trained from the business model 1 can do well also in the new business model, free-to-play. So we combine the performance on test 1 and test set 2 to rank the entries. So data descriptions. So we provide the training data for 4,000 players, and 30% of the players is 1,000. And the size is 48 gigabyte, and actually it has 175 million events. And we use two different test sets, test set 1 and test set 2, and each size is 30 gigabyte. In total, the data size is 100 gigabyte. The log data is as follows. So it has timestamp and event type. There are 82 event types. So for example, the gamer enter the world and enter zone and lose item, get item. So in that way, behaviors of the gamers are recorded in the game log data. And there are additional 72 columns to explain the details of the event. So for example, what kind of item lose and what kind of item get. So all the details are stored in the 72 additional columns. Okay, so the result of this year competition, track 1. We have 13 participants in this year, and from Germany and Finland and Japan, and many of the submissions is from South Korea. So I have a class in Yonsei University, and I gave them as a course project. So we have many submissions from the Yonsei University. Yeah. Okay, so winner of this year competition is YD from Japan, the Silicon Studio. Congratulations. So is there any member from YD? Okay. Okay, so do you want to explain a little bit about your team's method? So just very short. Can you do that? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all. So since there were difference in the two tests, test 1, test 2, there was this change in the monetization. We took different approaches for each of tests. We trained different models. For the first one, first we took features, autoencoders, LSTM autoencoders to extract some common features, more generalized between the tests and the train. So semi-supervised, let's say, learning. And then for the first test 1, we just train LSTM approach.
LSTM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also with like the logs, we had these daily logins, like temporal, like players, temporal data, let's say, and we also then compute static features, counting the action logs, the different types of action logs, and also extracting the playtime or actions as well. And for the second test, we consider the model I presented, and there's conditional inference survival ensembles, but in this case with the binary approach, and also with the same features as well. But in this case, we just had not the static ones.
Okay, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. UTU or okay.
What's the binary classification?
The
Can you just repeat it?
yeah. Okay. There are two classes. The first one is churn. So the gamer will stop the game playing. And the second class is the retention. The gamer will continue the game playing. So that's a decision. One of the which class is the answer for the gamer. So that's a binary classification problem. Okay.
We can easily create a new classifier by just taking number 13 and turning it around, and then we have a test score of, no, it's F1 score, it's not accuracy.
F1.
F1 score, sorry. Okay, forgot about that, sorry. I thought it was accuracy.
Oh, okay. Okay, and actually second runner-up is UTU, and third place Triple S from Korea. And the NCSoft, they expect that because this problem is too difficult, their guess is that it's not easy to get more than 0.5, but the outcome is 0.62. So they think that this result has some meaning, actually. So this is a good result than our expectation. Okay. Actually, YD team gave us some document. So they are from Silicon Studio Japan, and they use two different methods. For the test set 1, they use deep learning, the long short-term memory plus deep neural network. And test 2, they use a kind of ensemble tree classifiers. It's very similar to random forest, but slightly different extra tree classifiers. And they use 50 trees. And it's very deep. Yes, I cannot show you in this way. Anyway, this is a LSTM with a deep neural network. There are many layers, so GRU and some dropout. And actually, you can find the details after the conference. Okay. And the techniques, so we analyze the techniques used in each entry. So we can grouping the techniques into 3 categories: neural network, maybe most of them deep learning, and tree, most of them ensemble tree classifiers, and linear or logistic regression. And as you can see, trees are very powerful, but the deep learning has potential to be the best if you tune the deep learning model with many trial and error on the parameter tuning. Anyway, it has a big potential in the classification. Anyway, they use many different types of techniques. Okay, competition track 2, survival analysis. That's a regression problem. How many days the gamers will continue the games? That's a prediction. And it's more difficult, and we have small number of submissions. That's 5 submissions. Okay, from Korea and Finland and Japan. Okay, the winner is again YD. Yeah. Congratulations. So can you comment about your entry? Very shortly.
You have slide?
No slide about in this case.
Well, so we use the same approach for the feature calculation. And then, well, in this case, also use the conditional inference survival trees with this case, regression case. And yeah.
So ensemble tree approach. Right?
Tree, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For both track
Okay.
1 and track 2. Yeah, for both tests.
Okay.
Track 1. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah, actually, the company have more interest in the survival analysis instead of the churn prediction, because this is more useful in terms of the game company's viewpoint. So, but there is a small number of entries, so we hope that more entries in this area. And widely, the winner used the ensemble of decision tree, and the tree number is 900. So many trees. And yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. So that's not normal. Anyway, tree boosting, and the second entry is from 성균관 University in Korea. Tree boosting, linear regression, Finland, and ensemble tree and generalized linear models. Okay, congratulations. And we got some questions about the data use after this competition. For example, can we get the data after this competition? Actually, the downloading the data is available until end of August because the data is too big. We use some Amazon Web Service to support the download, but we are still under discussion to extend the data downloading. But please download as soon as possible. So, but we will extend, hopefully. And the data used for academic research, NCSoft told me that there is no restriction on the academic use. So please use the data for your research. But they ask us, please include the acknowledgement for their company name. And finally, there are big requests that open the test data label. So they will open the test data label so you can compare your new solution with the YD, the best performance. Okay, so you can publish result, comparison with the YD. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for your interest and hope to see the next year. Thank you.
Okay, so since you mentioned that NC is already satisfied with the performance beyond their expectation, so I'm concerned. Well, it has been decided that they continue for the next year, or they already satisfied, so they just is done.
Okay, to the best of knowledge, the NCSoft is want to do some kind of open research that they want to find solution outside of the NCSoft. So, for example, they provide the data and they want to find someone who can solve the problem. So that's a very new trial in terms of the game company's viewpoint. So maybe I hope so they will try new one to open the new data. So, but there is no any guarantee yet. But I hope that this result gives some good feedback to the high level, some persons in the company. Then we will continue this event in the next year. Yeah.
With new data?
Yeah, with new data. Oh. Actually, this data was open to the public. Yeah. Okay, and actually, if you have any requests on the game data mining to the NCSoft, please contact us. We can share your viewpoint with the game company. They have big demand on the AI researcher on the how can we solve this kind of problem. So please contact us if you have any idea. Okay, thank you.
So the next competition is Angry Birds level generation. Angry Birds level generation. Matthew. Should be Matthew. So who? I am so an entry, so I cannot present.
Oh, really? Yeah, you said it. Oh, right. Okay. Let's move to the next competition, and then we'll discuss.
Okay. Okay, let's skip this competition. So the real next one is the text-based adventure AI competition. Okay. Crisis.
Okay, well. Hello, my name is Diego Perez. I'm here to present the test-based adventure AI competition results. Actually, the organizers of the competition are listed down here. They are from the University of York. They couldn't be here. Tim Atkinson, Hendrik Bayer, Tara Copplestone, Sam Devlin, and Jerry Swan. They are probably watching it on the stream, so hi guys. I hope I do right. So this is the second edition of the test-based adventure AI competition. Probably you have heard about it before. If you haven't, the idea is that you play one of these test adventure games, and the idea is that you create an agent that interprets whatever is written there, write commands, try to get information out of it, and essentially plays a game by basically going filling one room or one scenario and then moving to the next one. The idea of this competition is to basically fill the historic gap between video games in competitions and also board and car games that have been doing research for a long time. And it's a challenge in two different perspectives. One of them is natural language processing, so understanding what is saying in a game like this, and also automatic model acquisition. So not only understanding what's been there, but also what are the implications of the actions or the commands that the agent performs when it's running. So as I said, the idea of this competition is you submit an agent, and the agent interacts with an environment in a completely text-based manner. And then the agents are run in a final game that hasn't been seen before by any of the competitors. And each agent is evaluated with two different scores. The first one, C1, is essentially completely objective. It depends on how many scenarios the agent is able to go through. And the second one, C2, is a tiebreaker for the first one. And the idea that the actual organizers will be checking if in case there is a tie in C1, they will be checking subjectively if one agent is more general than the other. In the sense of it's including less prior knowledge for the actual agent. So last year, the competitors that won the competition was this group, Fulda, Rix, Murdoch, and Wingate. They released their source code. So basically, you can check the source code in this GitHub repository, and also they have this paper in Sky 2017 that basically they describe their entry. They were using some kind of Q-learning system to learn which actions are possible. One of the interesting things about this competition is that you can basically do whatever you want. You have just a prompt to write stuff, and it's very difficult to actually know what stuff is actually relevant. And they were using Q-learning to try to identify and learn what is important and what is relevant for the game. Now for this year, we're going to go through the top 3 entries, starting with the third one. So the third one is the Golovin agent that was presented here yesterday. Well, everything was said about this agent. The second one was actually an improvement or a new iteration of the agent that won last year. It's called Carl. Actually, these two agents score the same in C1, so they move the same number of scenarios. But the organizers thought that the Carl agent was more general in the sense of how it was treating the scenarios that it was facing. And actually, the winner of the competition is the same agent as last year. So the improved version of the agent that won last year ran second this time, and still is the first one who is leading. Carl, in theory, has some improvements, and actually in the paper that is being presented in this guy, they describe these improvements. They are basically analyzing all the text, separating the sentences in different chunks, and then those sentences are essentially vectorized and assigned to prototype sentences or prototype entities in the space. And then according to these ones, the states are identified, are basically isolated, so they can discretize the state space in a more or less interesting manner. So, well, as I said, the winner is the one last year. For next year, what they plan to do is to do a general test-based adventure AI competition. And the reason behind this is that the actual paper, the ISCAI 2017 paper of the winners, they actually tested this new agent in 50 different games. And in that case, it proved to be better than the previous year entry. But it happened that in the only test game that was tested for the competition, still the previous one was better. So the objective that they have at the moment is to make more games available for a test set in order to have a more general evaluation. There's actually not much for me to say. They have the website for the competition and also the email in case you're gonna ask some questions or some or especially give them some feedback. And that's all for me. If you wanna have questions, I might be able to answer them or probably not.
Okay, let's
We'll go last.
Okay.
Okay, we have results, we just need to make slides. Thanks.
So maybe one question because first of all, how many entries there were for this competition? 3. Okay, that's the other because if the game will be released, I mean that game, or you
I don't know that, but I assume so. But I don't know that. It would be better to ask them.
So the next one is Miss Pac-Man vs Ghost Team competition, which will be presented by Simon.
Thanks. Thanks, Rook. Just take a minute to switch over. By the way, for people wanting to read up more on Ms. Pac-Man, we've just published a survey paper on this with, I think, 130 references to papers on Ms. Pac-Man. I was going to just say, just Google and you'll find it. But actually, I just Googled for Ms. Pac-Man survey and I couldn't find it. But maybe, I think it's been, is it in early access now? Or is it on one of our web pages? On yours?
I just moved here to ask you where we can find the paper. You said you cannot find it.
So that's a challenge to see if anybody can find it online. I can't. Anyway, it's coming out imminently. So Pac-Man is a classic game, and it's still something that's being very actively researched in a number of different guises. It is. Yeah, so if you just go to Diego's website, then... well, if you just Google Diego Perez, then you'll find it. Yeah, we'll put it in the slides later. Okay, so this competition is in its 2nd edition. Now, this is an evolution of a previous competition we had, which was initiated by a research group and run mainly by Philip Rolfshagen and David Robles, mainly Philip. And that was the Ms. Pac-Man versus Ghosts competition. Now, that was a very successful competition, and we had more than a couple of hundred entries. And although Ms. Pac-Man is a great game, the ghosts are just a fixed set of ghosts in it across 4 different mazes. And because of the ghost AI, it means that if you understand the ghost AI and papers have been published. Well, there's a website actually which explains how the ghosts operate most of the time when they're in deterministic mode. Then you can just figure out what they're going to do. And even though it's still very hard for a human to play this in real time, it means that potentially an AI could get a very high score. Although, in fact, no AI has yet done this, but it's sort of potentially doable. So the challenge of this competition and the one that went before it is, first of all, now you can either submit a Pac-Man entry or you can submit a Ghost Team entry. Okay, so that's the big thing that's new. And of course, when you're playing as a Pac-Man, you've no idea which team of ghosts you're going to be up against and what kind of strategies they're going to be following. And similarly, as a Ghost Team, you don't know what sort of Pac-Man opponents you'll be up against. So that's a big challenge. However, we felt that still wasn't challenging enough. So what we also introduced this time is partial observability. And this makes a huge difference. So what we do, one of the reasons is that Piers' work is about using partial observability and communication as mechanisms to kind of vary games. So you can take an existing game and vary the observability of the agents and vary the communication mechanisms, and you have a whole couple of dimensions of variation to explore of variants of that game. So partial observability for sure increases the challenge of the game. It means it's much harder because there's so much uncertainty. And there's a few interesting ways in which you can make the game partially observable. And the one that we did for this competition is illustrated, I think, on the next slide. So with this, it's line of sight observability. And so Pac-Man is in the corridor that you can see just here. And so it can see up and down that corridor as far as the walls. Now, if the Pac-Man moves to there, then it'll also be able to see along that corridor too. So depending on where it is in the maze, its observability changes quite dynamically. And so if you're to play this game really well, you can sort of factor in the observability of different points in the maze into how you're going to traverse the maze. One thing we've also done in our lab is for one of our games group meetings, we spent the entire time just playing this in team mode. So you have a Pac-Man playing against 4 players, each player just controlling a ghost, and it's a pretty fun game actually. You get these sort of sudden kind of spikes of excitement. So as you come up to here, and you just sort of realize that there's a ghost just about to get you, and it's just a nice little kind of spike of excitement. It's quite good. So straight on to the results. Now I've got a few more notes about what these. But by the way, the authors of Subtle Battle here. Maybe they're watching online. Anyway, congratulations to the author of Subtle Battle. You've won the Ms. Pac-Man track. Now, obviously, playing as a Pac-Man, your aim is to get as much score as possible. So higher is better. And their average score was 10,260. And that's using one step look ahead. Now, it's interesting that that's beaten the Monte Carlo tree search player into second place. And it's also beaten the beam search player and then some simpler state machine approaches. Now, why is one step look ahead able to do this? Can anybody guess? Well, limited observability definitely makes a difference. And what it means that if you are going to use MCTS, you've got to be quite smart about how you do it. So you're going to be better off using some like information set MCTS or a version of MCTS that at least builds a pretty good model of where the ghosts are likely to be. So the way that this happens is that if you think about it as a Pac-Man, you're only able to observe the ghosts in a very sort of limited way. And what this means is that you can, once you observe the ghost, at that moment in time, you're certain of where that ghost is. I think actually what we do is if you see the ghost, you actually find out the exact position of it. Now, another variant would even be to say, well, you're just looking down a corridor and you can just see that there's a ghost there. But actually, we do give the exact position of the ghost if you're able to see it. So if there was a ghost there, then at that game tick, you would know exactly where that ghost was. Now, over time, for the next game tick, you may still know exactly where that ghost is, and then as it disappears from view, there becomes a kind of like a sort of tree of possible places, in fact, a graph of possible places of where that ghost could be. And what the one-step look-ahead player, I believe, has done is to model that quite effectively. So it's got a smart way of guessing where the ghosts are going to be. So even though it's only doing one-step look-ahead, it's doing that using much better information than the MCTS player bothered to do, which is why I think they were able to win. One thing that we don't have at the moment is very much detail. So we have the source code of all of these, but at the moment we don't have very detailed explanations of how they're working. But that's essentially how the one-step look-ahead player is operating. One thing to note is that we had 2 entries to this track in 2016, and this year I'm happy to see that we've got 29. Now, I think slightly more than half of that 29 have just come from one course on game AI at University of Magdeburg, and that's we've got Alexander here from that group. So it's also good to note that these competitions, they make very good assessment exercises in artificial intelligence modules. So that was the results of the Ms. Pacman track. For the Ghost track, now what happens is that each ghost operates independently, but they're allowed to communicate with the other ghosts. And so as these ghosts go around, they're following the same kind of rules as Pac-Man. In fact, the ghosts have lower control than Pac-Man, so a ghost can't simply elect to reverse direction. It is only allowed to make decisions at the junction points, and that's just following the rules of the game of Ms. Pac-Man. But the ghosts are able to communicate with each other, and if they spot a Pac-Man, the Pac-Man, they can say to the other ghost, Pac-Man's at a particular location, and then that other ghost can then pick up on that. So this time we got 18 entries, and again, slightly more than half of these were from University of Magdeburg, but we're still picking up other entries as well, and that's up from 0 in 2016, so that's quite a healthy increase. Yeah. So the results of this, and this time, because you're trying to catch the ghost as soon as possible and restrict how much score it gets, the results here is that lower scores are better. Do we have the authors of Marfa here?
I know who he is, but
Okay.
don't have the details.
Okay. Well, congratulations to the author or authors of that. They've won, in this case, within the MCDS player. Beating the State Machine and rule-based players who this clicker's gone, who didn't do quite as well. We have a video just showing this in action. So what you're going to see is the full game in the left, and then as you go around, you can see what the Pac-Man sees, and then what each ghost sees, and this just gives you an idea of really what I've already explained, but it's just nicer to see this actually running live. So running it. Well. Okay, it was too. Let's try again. Maybe. Which one? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Do you know how to figure this out? Because I don't. Should we just plug in this one instead?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Okay, so this is a game in action, and at the moment the Pac-Man's just got eaten. And remember, the full game's playing in reality, but what each player can see is just this restricted view, and you get a good idea about how dynamically this changes the extent of the view. So this is a view of Subtle Battle, which is the first Pac-Man one, versus Thunder, which is the third Ghost one. I'm not sure why we've got the third Ghost one. So I think that gives a nice idea of the challenge of the competition anyway. And it's good to see that we got a decent number of entries and also a good span in the quality of the entries. So for future directions, one thing we can do is looking at limiting the communication budget. So at the moment, agents are allowed to send as many messages as they want, and there's no delay. So we can look at having a message budget and also delaying that. And also improve support. We might offer a better API with some utilities. So for example, if you're going to do this well, then you're best off having a probabilistic model of where the other agents could be, and we might just build that as part of the API to help people get smarter agents. So I'll stop there, and thanks for your attention. Take any questions, okay?
So I think when I heard this discussed earlier, is it true that so the pills are not visible either, or just the ghosts?
He knows. Yeah.
The full map information is available at the start of the game. You can ask for it how the map looked like at the beginning of the map, but after you started playing, you just see what's in line of sight. So you have to track it with yourself.
Okay, so just one suggestion for API improvements. Since the pill locations is obviously information that only Pac-Man's actions will remove it, you're basically obligating everyone to just tediously track what they've done and remember it. You may as well just let them see the pills. It's because if only Pac-Man's actions are removing it, then you can have 100% certainty of whether or not there's a pill there or not.
If you're a Pac-Man.
Right, oh, okay.
But not if you're a ghost.
Okay, good point. So yeah, I would say for Pac-Man then, yes.
I think for that one, I think it may be, because then as soon as you've got to have different models for the Pac-Man versus a ghost, it may be just a bit of a... I'll feed that back to Piers and see what he thinks, but it may be a complication that maybe it's not all that tedious anyway to track.
Yeah, it just seems like a trivial API thing that you're either asking everyone to recreate basically the same thing, which is straightforward, or but if there's a legitimate reason where it's like, oh, actually, you may not be 100% certain of where it is, then yeah, that's totally fair to... and in fact, that may even be a different variant where pills come back for some reason. Maybe instead of trying to clear the level, you're trying to get as many pills as possible on the level where pills come back.
Yeah.
Or maybe some... that would be really interesting, and that would really justify not being aware of where they are.
I think that's a really good point. In fact, when we've been developing, when Piers, the PhD student, has been developing this, we've had several discussions actually about whether we even need a separate software suite for this, or could we just do this in general video game AI? Because there is already a Pac-Man variant in that, and also we have a two-player track now. And so another direction to take this is make it super general and just say within GVG AI, we'll now have a... Diego saying, no. we can have a partial observability track as well. So for any game, we put a partial observability filter on, and this is like another dimension of variation to that.
Yeah, all great ideas.
Thanks.
What I would like to note is that for the Ghost AI, the communication protocol is extremely limited currently, and it only allows 3 types of messages: where am I heading, where is Pac-Man, and where am I? And what's also a great source of information would be the pill is already eaten, because it can track Pac-Man afterwards after I haven't seen him there. So if I'm going around the corner and I see that all pills are eaten at this place, I know that Pac-Man was already there and probably doesn't need to go there anymore. And ghosts can't communicate about this fact.
Thanks. That's a really good point. In fact, that's something that I think I did know, but I'd forgotten. That's a really good point, actually. So this idea, in fact, the ghosts don't have the full communication ability already, and that's kind of an interesting limitation. That's sort of, I think that was part of Piers' design, actually, come to think of it.
With full communication, it would be a little bit too easy because you can give information about your full state.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want to do this to promote playing cooperatively. But this one thing might be a great source of information that is otherwise missing, because we had some AIs that tried to track this, and then they observed that all ghosts are checking at the same direction if the pills are still available, since they couldn't communicate about it.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting point.
Actually, about the partial observability, one thing we did not get time to mention in the tutorial is that we can take it as an option to switch on or off in the games. And we have more than 100 games in the single-player learning track and planning track, and 60 or 80 in the 2-player ones. By doing so, we can increase the number of games in the tracks, and we don't really need a separate track. We can just let agent play a mixed game of fully observability and partial observability game.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can do that. I think, yeah.
And also, I think it should be part of the parameter to be tuned as a game design part.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, thank you. Was that your clicker too? Yeah. I think the batteries may be gone.
So here is our last presentation. Is ready? Okay.
If you want another few minutes,
yeah,
we've got something else.
Okay, right. Excellent. Do that, and then just prepare this.
Great, thank you. Hi, it's me again. So there are basically 2 things. First one, I will make an announcement first before I forget it. First, I think some of you may know that IEEE CIG Society provide prizes for the winners and the runner-ups in the game competitions. Not only game competitions, game competitions. So we provide 3 prizes: 500 to the winner, 300 to the first runner-up, and 200 to the second one. And we have very strict detailed awarding policy, but you can find it online. And the team, the winning team or person should be student or young professional. We have argued a lot about the definition of young professional, and myself don't even remember the full definition, but it's written in the white page, so please check it. And for the competition organizers, please include this link to your competition white page to let people know that they can win a prize. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it could be enough to pay for the registration fee for our conference, right? Okay, second thing is that, again, to the single-player learning track, I'd like to invite the winner of our competition to present the entry. Unfortunately, the sample controller, the sample random, did not attend the conference. So,
But he still got a prize,
yeah, it depends, yes. I mean, if we show up in the conference, yes, and get 500, I don't know where this random will spend the money, maybe randomly. So, I'd like to invite our first runner-up Ekman, would you like to talk about your agent?
Hello everyone, I'm Ercüment. I'm a master student from Istanbul Technical University, Turkey. And yeah, I was in second place in this competition. We had limited time and it was the first one. So we were just getting used to it. So I just put together a simple controller, but looking at the other ones, I can see it's not that simple actually. So I just use the double expected true online SARSA with some function approximation. And I use some simple state representation to map the nearest items on the game grid by using its coordinates. That's all I can say. If you have any questions, I can answer them about my controller.
So, how much did you get to play with the parameters? So when you do this, it's quite a complex design problem.
Yeah. I didn't have so much time, and my controller has like 4 parameters, and playing 10 games in training set takes like an hour. So you can't evaluate them much, so you have to guess and put random numbers and hope they will work. So yeah, I couldn't tune them much, actually. Actually, I've used the first game to tune them, but it didn't work quite well. And I did my submission, and then I had some error. So I learned that I had to make my learning rate adaptive. I've had to find a quick way to change that too. Yeah, my parameters weren't at the place. That's all.
So I definitely encourage you to submit again the next one.
Yeah.
This time you have more chance to do them.
Yeah, and I will change my controller to find some new ways, because this is a unique challenge. It gives you 5 minutes per game. You can't learn with deep learning or some complex methods, because yeah, it's a new challenge and exciting. Thank you for the competition.
Thank you for the participation. And I just want to comment before passing the mic to Julian. Just want to comment that Ekman is finishing his master and he's looking for a PhD. That's very important. Yeah. If I had funding, I should have taken him. So, Julian or Matthew?
Not me. Absolutely not Matthew. Definitely not Matthew. Emphatically not. This is a Windows machine. How do I press buttons? There? Oh, on this thing, right. I never understood what that thing meant. Okay. Right, great. So the Angry Birds level generation competition. There's been an Angry Birds playing competition running at several conferences, organized mainly by Jochen Renz, since 2014, maybe? 2011? 11, really. It's been going on for a while. And that, I always thought was a fascinating thing. I'm not involved in it at all. It stems from Jochen's interest in qualitative physics and that research area. I always thought like, hey, just give me a forward model and I'll basically see Angry Birds playing as a continuous optimization problem. And Jochen to that would respond, absolutely no forward model. That is definitely, that's wrong, basically. So in discussions, this competition came out of discussions we had originally when we discussed that competitions. Basically, he mentioned he wanted to do a level generation competition before, and I said, I've organized level generation competitions, and I can advise you. Oh, you can be a co-organizer. I said, yeah, maybe. So this is what happens. So this is a competition about generating levels for Angry Birds, which is which is pretty relevant because Angry Birds is really all about the levels. Apart from that, the game is pretty simple. So what you do here is you submit the level generator for Angry Birds, follows a pretty simple interface, and gives you a lot of like leeway in how to implement it in what languages, etc. And then we have judging panels, which judge these levels. They play them without knowing who made them, and judge these levels based on fun, creativity, and difficulty. And the best generator across all three categories rated a winner. So this year, because we decided to run CIG here in New York at this time, unfortunately, the organizers of CIG, which is another AI competition you might have, or AI conference you might have heard of, decided to run their conference at the same time as CIG, which is a very questionable decision of them. It's halfway across the world, of course, in Australia. And Jochen, working in Australia, decided that he was going to be there and not here. So how are we going to run this competition? We run it at both conferences in parallel. So what we did was that people, 5 different teams, or 5 different, submitted generators. And then we had judging panels here and in Australia. So we organized the judging of Angry Birds levels here yesterday, and it was the day before, I think, in Australia. And then Jochen assembled the results and calculated it. Matthew, who's sitting here, did the original interface and the original sort of design of the competition. He wasn't organizing last year. This year, he cannot be an organizer because he wanted to compete. That's why the slight confusion before. So Jochen has been keeping one thread of communication running with me and one with Matthew, so that Matthew cannot be involved in any of the judging. Now on to the generators. So the first one is Funny Quotes, featuring dominoes by Zhang Yushuan. And basically, it creates levels based on little quotes of various times. So basically, it spells out words in blocks and then places pegs and stuff on the... by the way, I'm assuming you all know what Angry Birds is and how it works. Anyone doesn't know? No one who wants to give themselves away? You throw birds at blocks till the blocks break, and then you kill pigs. The pigs are little green balloons. Natural. So this one creates pretty sort of solid, in the sense that they are like solid material levels, which are pretty hard overall. We have MCTS featuring blocks. I do not know how it works, both by Zhang Yushuan, but it presumably uses MCTS to either build the levels or to test the levels. Yes, says Rock. That's true. You are involved in both of these? Or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, the previous one also uses MCTS.
Okay, right. In order to build it or to test it? To build it. Okay, so it uses MCTS. Okay, right. Cool. Yeah, so okay, so this one clearly creates completely different type of levels. As you can see, there are like these very sort of, you know, vertical objects which are easy to push around. Generally, much easier than these funny quotes. There's the AI Birds level generator by Matthew. Matthew can probably say something in a bit about how that works. There's the big outlier of the bunch is the scrap maps generator, which looks very different. Those of you who were in the judging panel yesterday, I mean, basically everyone when they got to this generator sort of let out a little gasp of surprise, like, "Whoa, that's different," because it's basically just like a pile of stuff. And usually when it starts, the physics don't work out well, so you'll see something spinning. Yeah, some broken objects and things spinning and stuff, and things just exploding at the beginning, and then you have to sort of sort out the rest. These levels tended to be pretty easy because there weren't that many pigs, and the pigs were relatively easy to get to. There's an evolution generator by Lucas Ferreira, who has been doing Angry Birds generator since 2014 at least, so since before the competition. And am I right that The last year's competition actually built on his code, right? Kind of, yeah, right, yeah. And he is in no way involved in the organization this year as well. And this is yeah. So basically, it creates relatively lightweight structures typically. Results: the judging panels were not unanimous, but Jochen basically took an average of panels from New York and from Melbourne. For fun, AI Birds generator was ranked first, so that's Matthew generator. Funny quotes, second, because they're funny, I guess. And a third, EMCTS generator. For creativity, we had exactly the same results. Now, I might go on the limb and say here that, you know, just betray myself, as I actually ranked the scrap heap generator really high for creativity. I thought that was really interesting, but many other people did not agree. I have strange tastes. For difficulty, funny quotes come first. Difficulty was supposed to be about having the appropriate difficulty. I know that here we judge it as like the top, the highest score you got, the more difficult you were. And I think Jochen actually sort of, you know, took that into account when he normalized the results. But it seems that people like the difficult levels, and funny quotes generator is overall, generates very difficult levels. The overall winner is Matthew Stevenson. Congratulations. With both of Young Yushan, so Rook's teams, Rook's two teams, in second and third place. Matthew, do you want to say a few words about how your level generator works?
I can do, but I'm going to leave a talk on it later the coffee break.
After the coffee break. Okay, good. Please don't say anything about how your level generator works. Any questions before we end the session?
So there's an original Angry Birds or some science board.
Yeah, this is Science Bird. So basically, this is a Unity remake of Angry Birds, which is a qualitative remark. It's the game feel is not exactly the same, and I know that the Angry Birds playing competition used the web version of the original Angry Birds, which is now deprecated. So I don't know. It was probably pretty hard to hack it up to actually allow level generators, plus, you know, IP infringement and whatever. Other questions? So then we close this session. See you next session.